So welcome to today's career session on creating a great CV. And as mentioned, I'm Andrea, one of the careers advisors here at the university. So as mentioned, after today, you will receive a recording, an email with a recording and copy of the presentation slides for you to have a look at. Okay. So in terms of the aims of the session today, just to let you know that the aim is to create a great CV that is effective and appropriately articulates your knowledge, experience and skills to match opportunities. So in terms of the actual CV, just to highlight that it is based on a UK CV, so a CV for opportunities within the UK. And obviously at the end of today's session, if you do have any questions that are specific to your CV that you feel may not have been answered in today's materials, please do not hesitate to get in touch with myself. I will add my email address at the end and or book a careers appointment with myself or a member of the team as well. Okay. So firstly, just to let you know as well, this session is designed to help people whether they are actually creating a CV for the first time, or you may be creating a CV for a new job, or if you are updating your CV, so you may have one from past experiences and you want to just add to that, or if you generally just want to explore what's available in terms of resources and supports for your CVs. So I would just like to ask participants, please, if you could just put in the chat if you're A, creating a CV, B, planning on updating yours, or C, just interested in the resources. So if you just take a minute to add to the chat, please. Okay, so thank you for the contributions. We've got a couple of people that are creating a CV and also one person that's also updating their CV too. So thank you for that. That's really helpful. Obviously, when I'm going through the slides, I can help try and tailor the information to yourselves. So that's great. Okay, so what is a CV? So a CV stands for curriculum vitae, and it actually means course of life in Latin. And you may be aware that it is a document that you use for applying for jobs, and it's useful because it helps to summarise your education, skills and experience, and therefore enables you to successfully sell yourself to potential employers, so your skills, knowledge and experience. So research suggests that employers are in particular interested in these key sections on your CV. So these being your personal details, including any social media links, which essentially are things like your LinkedIn, or if you do write a blog, for example. And also in there is if you have student membership of any professional bodies linked to your course or career area. They're also interested in your personal profile, so who you are, what you have to offer and what you hope to achieve too. And also your education and qualifications, so they want to see if you are qualified to do what they need you to do, and also any work experience that you may have. So we'll cover this a little bit more detail later, but that does include volunteering as well and any roles that you may have done previously. And then a skills profile, which is really useful because obviously they will want to see if you have the skills that they're looking for, and again that they need to do that job. And then finally, referees or references, as they are also known. So in the UK, it's common practice that employers do want references, and they'll contact these people before they firm up a job offer with you. So that's something just to bear in mind too. Okay. So one of the first steps really to be aware of is that there are a number of different types of CVs, and it's useful just to be aware of this before starting a CV, especially for the first time. And the reason for that is because there are different CVs for different purposes. So you'll notice it's a bit small on the screen, but I have included the link at the end. So there are a few different types of CVs, And on here in the pink writing to the right hand side of the slide, it shows chronological CV, a skills-based CV, academic CV, a teaching one, technical one, and law and a video one too. Now, what as careers advisors we suggest is a good starting point is actually to produce a chronological CV. Okay, so ignore the other ones when you're starting out for the first time. And a chronological CV, it is also known as a traditional or graduate CV, and it's really useful if you are, for example, applying for jobs, placements, work experience. So if you're updating your CV too, and I know we've got somebody joining us today who's doing that, then a chronological CV is also useful for that. So I'm going to show you an example of a chronological CV on the next slide. So on the right hand side of this slide, you will see it is actually just a one-page chronological CV. But what I aim to do here really is just to show you the different headings that you'll find in a chronological CV. So I will read these out in a minute. But as mentioned, a chronological CV or a traditional CV is a really good starting point. And some of the resources that I'll share with you. So our careers platform called Career Edge has some software called Complete CV Solution. And this includes templates for a chronological CV. And in a chronological CV, you can expect to find these headings. So you can expect to find your personal information. So you'll see my name at the top here in this example. And then your address, email address, phone number, and then, like I mentioned, some social media links if you have these, and if they are appropriate to what you're applying for. And then there's the profile as well. So this tells the reader about you, what you have to offer and what you hope to achieve, your education and qualifications, your work experience, key skills, and then interests, and also references. So these are the main sections you can expect in a chronological CV. It is normally over 2 pages as well. Okay. So when writing a chronological CV as a careers advisor, we do suggest that you try and put as much important information on the first page as possible. So starting with your personal details, this will include your address, your mobile or email, and as mentioned, your student membership of a professional body, if for example your course is accredited, and also a LinkedIn profile or a blog if you have these. But don't worry if you don't have the professional body status and the LinkedIn profile. The key really is to have your name, mobile and email so that the employer can contact you if they'd like to speak to you further. Okay. And then in your profile should include who you are and what your offer is. So, in terms of, do you have, for example, 2 years work experience or 2 months work experience? Do you have a wealth of skills gained from volunteering? And it should also summarise what you're looking for. So ideally it should be tailored to the role and the employer that you're applying for. And then in terms of actual length, we suggest that it should be in the region of 5 lines in length maximum. Okay. And there is a resource on Career Edge called Writing an Effective Profile that you can actually access for more guidance, and I will update the slides to include the link for this for you. And then at the bottom I've included an example of a personal profile just for you to read. So if you just take a minute to read, and I'll just explain. This one's actually written in third person, so there is no I or my. And you can write your personal profile in either third person like this one, or if you prefer, you can use first person too. So it's whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So when we've done personal details and personal profile, and now you'll be completing your education section. So this needs to be show your most recent first. So this would show your UCLan course that you're currently studying. And in there, depending on what you're applying for, you might want to include any projects, just the title or the dissertation that you've been doing. And again, any course accreditations. And then again, often we suggest that you should include also your college and school qualifications too. And your skill qualifications, rather than listing all the subjects that you may have covered, we suggest that you include, for example, a summary. So you may say 8 GCSEs or equivalent if you've studied in a different country, including English and maths. Okay. And then moving on to the work experience section. Again, this needs to be the most recent first. So if you are currently doing a role, whether that's part-time, voluntary, do show that on your CV. And here we suggest that you include volunteering, any student positions, part-time work and placements and all the jobs that you may have done, and that you include these ideally in reverse chronological order. And in the actual bullet points that you explain what you've done in these roles, we suggest that you try and quantify your experience and include any numbers and impacts. So, for example, if you've worked in a classroom with students, you may say that you've dealt with 10 students or 20 students, and that as a result of your class, 75% of those passed. So just give them a little bit more detail so that the reader can get a real feel for your experience too. And the other thing with work experience, if you are applying for a particular role, you can format that section, and you can highlight, for example, what we call relevant work experience. So you may change the order and show relevant work experience. So you might have lots of, say, for example, teaching experience, and then you'd have another subtitle that would say other work experience. So anything that doesn't link to teaching, you would then add in the other section. Okay, so there are different ways that you can format the work experience section, but the key message really is to include all the different roles that you've done, whether they are paid or unpaid. Okay. And then on the skills section, so this is a really key section in a chronological CV, because this is where the employer will look to see if you have what they need for the role. Okay, so it's crucial here that you tailor this section to each role that you're applying for, because they may require different skills. Okay, so I've given an example as well of how you can actually tell the reader your level of skill. So a key thing that we do see in careers is often people might say communication skills or team player, but they won't tell the reader how good they are. So it's really important to say excellent or strong or good. And then also you can actually include reference to how you develop that skill too. So you don't need to write a whole paragraph, but what you can do, as I've shown here, is just write a statement that says, as developed through working as a volunteer shop assistant. So you can cross-reference these skills back to your education or your work experience, depending on how you've developed these. Okay. And then the interests section, again, if you're a member of any societies, you self-learning, you like cooking, you like intercultural things. So any things that really show your personality are quite good to include here. Employers do like to read about individuals to get a feel for their personality and things they like to do in their spare time. And then finally, references, as I mentioned. There are two ways to do this. You can add the details for a past employee or somebody who's a character reference, or you can simply use references are available upon request. Okay. So here are just a few points of common mistakes that do happen in CVs, just to share with you. So one thing that we do see is often like the same word used over and over again. So that might be good. If you need any help with using different adjectives, do chat to us in careers. Number two is PDFs. Try, where possible, please, to use a Word document, and that is because a lot of computer systems used by employers for recruitment cannot read a PDF file. Okay, so number three, poor file naming. Just make sure that your CV obviously has your full name, your CV, and it doesn't say, for example, draft or another company's name in the file name, which can happen when you're busy applying for lots of different jobs as well. And just be careful that your statements are not, you don't include anything that's not true, because if you are successful, hopefully you will be, then they may expect you to deliver on what you've said in your CV. And then point 5, key really before you start any CV is just really to do a good research and know what the company is and what the job is about, because that will help you tailor your CV. And then we also suggest that you do not include salary details on your CV, because you want to be able to negotiate, hopefully, your salary. That's assuming it is negotiable. Okay. And then final point is just to be mindful of the CV email address that you use on a CV. And, ideally, perhaps just as your initial and surname or an abbreviation of that. And we do, if you're in your final year as well, just be aware that the UCLan email address doesn't, it does get cut off at some point. So one of the good email addresses I suggest often is a Gmail address, and that's because it's not linked to a subscription, for a mobile phone or broadband, and it's something that you tend to keep for a longer period of time. So there's just some ideas and things to be mindful of there for you. Okay. So to summarise, really the key tips when thinking about a CV is, point 1 is to choose a template that's appropriate. Now, a good starting point is the chronological CV, and it has a clear structure. And once you've got that content, you can then change it and make it, alter the design and do different things. But it's a really good starting point to keep that. And then ideally, maximum 2 pages. Most CVs are 2 pages. And the font size should be minimum of 11 points and ideally a maximum of 12. It's not on here, but words wise, we suggest, I think it's between 650 and 800 words. But if you are worried about your content, again, do have a chat with us in careers. Point 3, research what the employer wants. It is really important just to understand what the company is about and what the role requires in terms of knowledge, skills and experience. And I think it's important for you as an individual, because you want to know it's the right job for you as well. And that information then for point 4 will help you tailor your CV. And the 2 key sections that often get tailored are the personal profile and your skills section. So those are the 2 that should change. So it's good news that you don't have to rewrite your CV for every opportunity that you apply for. But the bad news is that we do suggest that your profile and your skills at a minimum are tailored. Now you can also, as I mentioned, start to tailor your education, like if, for example, your dissertation is appropriate to what you're applying for too. Okay. And as mentioned, the key points on the first page, ideally. So what I mean by that is you may, for example, have, it may be that you're applying for a job and you've got lots of work experience and it is actually stronger than your education. So in that situation, you may actually put your work experience above your education because it's stronger. So when you're thinking about the role and what you've got to offer, think about where your strengths are and what you really want to tell the employer. It may be, for example, they want a certain skill as well. So, for example, CAD, computer automated, I always forget what it is, but CAD anyway. So, so it may be that you highlight CAD in your profile as well. So there's different ways that you can make sure that the important information is kind of on the first page. And then try and adopt a positive style of writing. So using just positive words, things like self-learning, that you're willing to learn and show your kind of passion through your CV. And then point 7, allocate space accordingly to the importance. So I just mentioned about perhaps moving your work experience above your education. So thinking again what your strengths are compared to the role that you're applying for. And then point 8 is to use underlining, bold or emphasis with space information. So it is really important because employers kind of read very quickly your CV. It's useful to use different formatting. So for example, when you're listing your interests, you may have subheadings. So you may put sport in bold, and then you may say play tennis or football or whatever those sports are. Okay. And then a key number 9 is just really to review your CV. So I work as part of a team at the careers office at UCLan, and we're currently working online with students. So the 2 key ways that you can work with us are you can either submit your CV online through Ask a Question and CV Check. And also, I'll show you in a minute, but we have another resource called Complete CV Solution on Career Edge, which also sends your CV through to be reviewed. Or you can book a one-to-one appointment too. And then finally, the final point is to proofread your CV. Now, we do suggest that you ask somebody that you know to read through your CV. Being accurate is quite a key point. When you are applying for a job, it's really important that your spelling and grammar is as good as possible. So please do consider asking someone you know just to read through it as well. Okay. So here are a number of resources that you can use following from today. But as mentioned, obviously, if you would like a one-to-one appointment, please do get in touch. They are 20 minutes for your CV, and they are currently online with Teams as well. Okay. So just starting at the top of this slide, you've got Career Edge. So some of you may have already been on the Career Edge system, but in the popular bar, you will find the Complete CV Solution, which includes CV Builder, where you can build a CV using software, and also a CV 360, which assesses your CV against the criteria that employers would use when recruiting. So that's quite a useful software to use too. And once you've done that, it gives you a report on different factors on your CV that you can build on. And then also, as mentioned, the CV review, there's an option to submit to careers where you can get a further written report. So it's useful to do that too, because we tend to look at different aspects as well as CV 360. And then the point 3, there's some resources there that you can use to get started with your CV if you like to use online programs. There's also a cover letter builder. So often applications do require a cover letter too when you're sending your CV in. And the prospects example is the one that I mentioned earlier. Now that is useful because you can have a look at the in there you can have a quick look at the chronological CV that I mentioned too. So there is an example and a template that you can access there. And at the bottom there are just the links again where you can make an appointment or send your CV to be reviewed. Okay. Okay, so I'd like to just ask you really, following today's session, please could you write in the chat one thing that you might do? So it might be that you're going to use Career Edge or book a careers appointment. Okay, thank you, Kezia. That's great. So you're going to edit your CV and book a one-to-one appointment soon. Brilliant. Okay. Excellent. So that's great. And thank you, Nitam. So you'd like to book a one-to-one appointment. Okay, that's great. So oh, Nitam's still typing. That's good. Yes, you're welcome. Okay. So thank you for sharing what you plan to do next. And got another student typing as well. Okay, so we're just waiting for the typing to come through. Okay, excellent. So thank you for those comments. That's really, really good to see. Yes, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my address and then I will email you the link to book an appointment. If that's helpful, you can either email me or okay, thank you, Sanchit, as well. You're going to book an appointment. So probably what I'm going to suggest actually, rather, I'll put my email address, but I'm going to give you the Career Edge login. You should be able to find it in your on your Blackboard area too, but I'm just going to give you Career Edge, and then if for any reason you can't find where to book, it just say on there, but I'll give you my email address too. So you're welcome to book with myself or one of my colleagues in the careers team. So thank you for joining our session today. I'm just going to ask if you could kindly as well, I've got a little bit of feedback, a link here that I'm just going to put in the comments section. Sorry, if you've got any more questions as well you'd like to add, please do add these in the chat shortly. I'm just going to add the feedback link too. Okay.